Needless to say, I'm tired of having meetings like this. I got the word this morning. Dickie Bedore called me this morning. I was traveling, and that Coach Guthridge had passed away last night. It's another tremendous loss for our university, our basketball program, and our entire community. He was extremely special and important to every player and every coach who ever worked here. He was even more important to me. Seems like 100 years ago, I was a high school coach and asked him if I could talk to him a little bit at lunch during camp. And told him that I thought I was cheating the students that I had at Owen High School, because I was teaching 5 classes of health and physical education. And the only thing I was thinking about was my 15 or 16 players on my basketball team. And I decided that I wanted to get into college coaching. And I told him I was thinking of applying for a graduate assistant's position at another school. And the next night at dinner, that's when Coach Smith asked me to come back and be the part-time assistant. So I think that not only did he coach me on the freshman team in 1968, 69, 67, 68, whatever year it was, he was my coach. He was another mentor. He was a friend. He was a father figure. He was a big brother for me, just like he was so many players. He was an unbelievable assistant to Coach Smith. Coach Smith had so many strengths and very few weaknesses, and the weaknesses that he did have, Coach Guthridge tried to fill, and tried to do every one of those little things that drove Coach Smith crazy. He tried to do them and do a great job with them. He was a perfect sidekick for Coach Smith. He was a perfect assistant for so many players who played here, and again, the coaches, me and Eddie Fogler, and I'm sure Randy Will and Dave and Pat and all those guys, and Phil was here, would feel the same way. It's a tremendous loss.
Coach, generally speaking, what does a head coach need from a top assistant, and specifically, how did Coach Guthridge compliment Dean Smith?
I think the easiest way he complimented Coach was that he was very much a task-oriented person. Coach Smith was very much a people-oriented person, which Coach Guthridge could have been. But again, he was extremely bright, and the task-oriented things that he did, like running camp and all the number of number of camp workers, number of kids, number of buses, number of meals. I mean, where we stayed, when we left, all the little things that Coach Smith didn't want to worry with, because Coach was a people person, and I think Coach Guthridge was very task-oriented, and yet he had one of the best sense of humors you can ever possibly have. A little weird, and there's no question about that. Weird handshakes and everything, but I just think he was a perfect compliment to Coach Smith.
Roy, Coach Guthridge could have left a couple times. Arkansas, Washington, Penn State, and stayed. Why do you think he stayed for as long as he did?
We had several conversations about that, and basically stayed because he was enjoying what he was doing, and why leave something you know is good for the unknown. And at one point in his life, he thought he wanted to be a head coach, but he also decided that he really enjoyed Coach Smith and the program here, and felt like, why should he leave when he knows he's got for what was him his perfect job.
Do you think Dean's up in heaven just needing an assistant right now?
It's a nice thing to say. It's a little they would love to be teeing it up this afternoon, I guess, would be the thing about it, but it's probably something to it.
Coach, what do you think his legacy will be?
I don't know that anybody ever decides what your own legacy is going to be, but I know there's probably 200 to 300 former Letterman managers that really loved Coach Guthridge and realized how the word assistant means you really help someone. And I can't imagine anybody, quote, really helping someone as much as Coach Guthridge did Coach Smith. And the impact that he had on the program we still run camp exactly like he taught me when I was an assistant here for 10 years. Do the same. We had to change some of the terminology because we changed terminology in the game, but still do it the same way.
Well, Shimon said that at Coach Smith's funeral that he made a real effort to make sure the former players went and said, hey, to Coach Guthridge.
Mhm.
You kind of talked about your mindset there, why you felt that was important at that time.
Well, I thought that he is and was extremely important to Coach Smith, and that I thought Coach Guthridge was slipping. And I wanted to make sure that the guys, did point him out to several people. Coach Guthridge is sitting over there, because I knew that they would want to go see him. And then during the open public celebration, I was up there. Every speaker was great except me, and I kept thinking of things that I think somebody would like to say, and I looked over and saw Coach Guthridge sitting there and wanted to recognize him, and because I thought that Coach Smith would want that too.
There's a lot of people who kind of think of Coach Guthridge as being forever in the shadow of Dean. Is that a little unfair to him? Was it more of a side-by-side thing in your view?
Well, he was in the shadow, but that didn't bother him. He liked that spot. The guy who hits second in the lineup, he is a big baseball fan like I am. The guy that hits second, he's hit there for a reason. And that if you're the third hitter, the cleanup hitter, you do different things. But Coach Smith was the perfect sidekick, and he didn't need the adulation. He didn't need to sit up here in front of the microphone and talk. He really enjoyed what he's doing, and he enjoyed it from a personal basis much more so than he cared really how someone would view him. People in basketball really know how important he was. There was the joke on TV that he was running out always first because he had the key to the bathroom or the locker room or some crappy thing like that. I mean, he did it because he wanted to do it. And I think that Coach Guthridge had his own way of looking at things, and he felt like he had the perfect job.
And we talk a lot about that, but by the same token, when he did get the chance to be the head coach, sort of forced upon him to a certain degree by the time he did very well,
Mhm.
both with the team that
Mhm.
Coach Smith left in 2000, sort of bringing
Mhm.
that team together and getting through the tournament. Does he get overlooked as a coach because of his sort of being inextricably linked to Coach Smith?
I think so. It's pretty good. 3 years and 2 Final Fours in 3 years. That's pretty doggone good. But again, I don't think that would bother him very much. But when he said, well, since I'm here, I might as well do the best I can do. And he took over that, and then he had Phil and Dave and Pat that really added so much to him as well. And we talked a lot during those 3 years when he was the head coach. And I don't know that he enjoyed his life any more as a head coach than he did as an assistant. And I can't emphasize it enough what Phil and Dave and Pat were able to do for him. He really appreciated that as well.
You like his handshake with Shimon said it was kind of a thumb and index finger.
It's just pretty easy. It's just a 2. Right, PJ? That's all it was.
His sense of humor, do you have any stories that kind of exemplify his funny self?
I've got a meeting at 4 o'clock, but he used to do things just to agitate people because he would get up earlier. And so then we'd have a staff meeting, Coach Smith barely up, and Coach Smith said, do you have any scores? He'd say, yeah, 82-80, 76-73. And he'd say, who won? Coach Smith say, who won? He said, 82 beat 80, 76 beat 73. I mean, he had a lot of those things like that. But one of the first recruiting trips I ever went with him, we go to Atlanta and watch a practice, watch running out on the track. It's in the fall, it's hot a whole bit, and we go eat at a very nice restaurant. And I'd never been to the restaurant or anything like that. And he orders baked Alaska for 2. And they brought it, and I didn't know what it was. I just know they put something on it. It flamed up, and the person there cut it and put one in front of Coach Guthridge and one in front of me. And he didn't say anything for a couple of minutes, and he said, this is the last time I'm bringing you. I said, what did I do wrong? He said, when I order this with Coach Smith or Eddie, they let me have both halves. So it's, but he was a unique young man and a unique old man. I played for him. He was pretty fiery as a coach of the freshman team. And I guess it was 68, 69, I think, Basketball Times or Basketball Weekly picked us as the #1 freshman team in the country. And it wasn't because of my play. But he was good on the floor with the guys, too.
Roy, I think during the Coach Smith memorial, you referred to him as Wild Bill Guthridge. Where did that nickname come from? How did that start?
I don't know that he had that nickname for anybody else. I would just say that to him periodically, just myself. Most of the time it was BG and RW. And same thing with Coach Smith. You've never heard me refer to him as Bill. If anybody says that Roy said Bill would have done this, then the guy's lying, because I've never called him anything except Coach Guthridge.
He's been called a quiet competitor, fierce under the
Mhm.
surface. What made him so effective as a coach? You saw him interact with his players, so what made him so effective?
He was very meticulous in his preparation when he was an assistant and also when he was a head coach. He told me the first year that he and Phil and Dave and Pat would get together for a couple hours every morning just to talk basketball, because he wanted to make sure that he was ready. So he was extremely organized. People talked about Coach Smith being organized, and he was, about things that were important for him to be organized about, not cleaning his car or cleaning his desk or anything. Coach Guthridge was completely organized about everything. And I think the competitiveness, he loved that part of it. I mean, when I guess first or second year after he retired, he played more rounds of golf at Old Chatham than anybody else in the club. And that was important to him. And he wanted to make sure, so he goes over that list all the way of everybody that played there. And he played more rounds than anybody. So he was very competitive. But you add that competitiveness with the organizational ability and intelligence. I mean, he had the whole package.
You mentioned that you played under Coach Guthridge on the freshman team, 68, 69. What sort of things did you learn from playing under Coach Guthridge, and what did you use from that in your coaching career past that?
So many things. And, what I did, too, is I played that year. And then the next year I would come and watch the freshman practices and the varsity practices. Today I still do some drills exactly like Coach Guthridge did, 100 years ago. But I think the preparation of not having anything surprise us in the game. But the first I was touched by that was playing for him. It was not when I came back to be an assistant for Coach Smith.
We were over at the museum today looking at the Coach Guthridge area, and there's like a jar that says excuses on it. Was this something that was well known with Coach?
If you were one of the players or on the staff, yeah, you knew those kind of things. I mean, he also had one, he's the first one to tell me, he said we should put a suggestion box up. And so it's that kind of deal. And I told him another one that somebody I saw one place had a suggestion box up on a very thin pole about 40 feet up off the ground. And he said, yeah, he says, I don't think our ceiling in here would handle that, that kind of thing. But he was a unique individual and one that really meant a great deal to our program, but really meant a great deal to me personally, too.
Take one or two more.
Coach, have you had a chance to think much about being among the last remaining of that original Coach Smith coaching tree?
Mhm.
And you, assuming the place kind of, you're the elder statesman now of all the other coaches.
Well, Larry's still coaching. Eddie Fogler, I still consider him a coach. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not the oldest guy is what I'm doing, I guess. And Steve and I, when we did the 100-year celebration, and they asked me to walk out with Coach Smith, and I said, why don't we get Coach Guthridge to walk out with us too? And then Steve had, I'm giving you credit, I think it was your idea, said, why don't we get you and Coach Guthridge and Eddie, all three, because that was the staff, and Coach won his first national championship. So there's a bond there. But George Carl's still coaching, guys like that. So I feel like I'm I don't want to say the oldest guy, but I'm in the seat that Coach Smith made very important for people to feel like it was one family. And I take that responsibility very seriously. It's a seat that takes a lot because you want to reach out to everybody, and you can't. I've called a couple of former players today. Called Doug Moe because Doug Moe could make Coach Smith and Coach Guthridge both laugh better than anybody I've ever known. And so I called Doug. Phil called me, and Phil said, "Are you wearing a coat and tie?" And I said, "No." I said, "Because if I did, Coach Guthridge would say, 'What are you doing that for? You should be going to the golf course,' because he's told me that so many times in the 12 years I've been back." And but it's not a lack of respect, because wearing a coat and tie up here would not have signified any more respect than I already have.
It's been obviously a tough year. How do you kind of go through all this and get through it all with two of your biggest mentors?
Well, the two of the three, Coach Smith, Coach Guthridge, and my high school coach, Buddy Baldwin. My mother was my angel, but those three guys are the one that directed me, guided me, counseled me more than anybody. And it hasn't been the most pleasant time. I think I'm right. December 2nd, lost the best friend I had in Chapel Hill, and Ted Seagroves. February 7th, I think, was Coach Smith, and May the 12th was Coach Guthridge. Those were three difficult days for me. It's been a lot of stuff going on. It's been the most difficult time of my life, but a lot of people got worse problems. But Coach Guthridge kept saying, "It's going to get better, it's going to get better," and I'm waiting. I want it to get there.